Season 1 of this podcast is sponsored by Muslim Marriage Services, also known as MMS. If you are looking for marriage, then join MMS, your trusted platform for finding a life partner within the Muslim community. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Welcome to Divorced Muslims, a Second Chance podcast. My name is Muhammad and I am your host. In this episode, we are joined by Sister Zoya. Her story is about how she married her cousin from abroad, and once he arrived in the UK, his insincere intentions were exposed. Assalamu alaikum to our guest today, who's known as Sister Zoya. Zoya, welcome to the show.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you very much.
Alaikum assalam. So, Sister Zoya, give us an introduction of yourself.
Okay, so I am a 37-year-old female. I'm 5'11". I'm a mother to a 19-year-old daughter, and I currently work as a nurse.
Thank you for that. You know, Zoya, in today's society, right, there's a growing trend that more younger Muslims are getting married. What's your thoughts about getting married younger? Is that an advantage or a disadvantage?
I think it depends on how young you do get married. So I was married at 16, and I think that is way young to get married. But if you're getting married in your early 20s, and I think it's all about your mindset of where you're at with yourself. People know when they are ready. I do think the disadvantage of getting married younger is you do change as a person. So what your needs, wants, desires are, they do change with time. And unfortunately, your partner, husband might not be changing with the times with you. And I think that leaves a lot to be desired.
You said you got married at the age of 16. That's very, very interesting. Tell us and the viewers your story.
Like I said, I got married at 16. It was a family decision. They were actually going to marry my sister, who was 17 at the time. So it kind of felt like a bit of a bargain. They were getting a buy one and get one free. Unfortunately, my father was ill at the time, and he kind of thought, okay, if I'm going to get one married, we'll get the other one married at the same time. So yeah, that was one of the decisions that they made. Was I ecstatic about it? I wouldn't say I was, but I had, left that decision to my parents at the time and thought that they knew best.
Can I just ask it? So, 16, at that age, did you have a choice?
I wouldn't say it was 100% of a choice. I think at that age, it was more of being an obedient daughter.
Did you speak to your potential husband at the time before you got married? Did you get to know him, or how did it work?
So my husband at the time was actually my first cousin. So I didn't know him, and no, we didn't get to know each other, didn't get to speak. It was more of just knowing when you were going on family holidays, because he was from Pakistan. So it was more of being known to him that way than it was of, getting to know each other for marriage purposes. So I would say that it was more of an arranged marriage, but without the getting to know each other part.
So you're 16, you get married.
Yes.
Tell us what happens from there.
So get married, was in Pakistan, came back here to the UK. I went on to go to college. In the whole time, going through the process of immigration, trying to get him over here, all that sort of thing. And obviously being a 16-year-old, it's quite hard to try and manage going to college and trying to show a part-time job, income, all that sort of stuff at the same time. But, going through the process, getting all that done, he arrives in the UK. We live with my parents. At the time, it was my mum, because my father had unfortunately passed by then. So comes over, live together, trying establish, I think, a relationship, trying to get to know each other, all that sort of thing. Learning that we're very different people, learning that we don't have that much in common. So it was definitely a learning process for both of us. But I think the sort of little bit of a downside of it is that we were family. So a lot of family was involved. So, it was kind of like, no, you've got to make this work. You've got to give it a go. Marriage is supposed to be hard, all that sort of things. But you're kind of thinking, yeah, okay, it's supposed to be hard, but it's not supposed to be this hard. Then, unfortunately, my ex-husband found a liking for one of our mutual cousins who was married at the time and decided that he would like to pursue that avenue. So
Let me take you back. Hold on. One thing I didn't ask you was, you were 16. How old was your husband at the time?
22.
Okay, he's 22. So
Yes.
have I understood this correctly, that he comes over from Pakistan to the UK and
Yeah.
ends up liking your cousin?
Well, it's both of our cousins. So yeah.
So his cousin
Our
as well.
mutual cousin. Yeah.
So he's a married man with
Yes.
you newly married.
Yeah.
I mean, how did this come about?
Well, it actually came about because he was calling her, meeting up with her. And you know how we wives love to check your phones of our husbands. So I was once going through his voicemails, and it was just there where she had said, I can't leave my husband. I can't be with you. I'm going to try and make this work with my husband. So you need to try and make your marriage work, sort of thing. And I was like, okay, this is a little bit fishy. What's going on here? And then obviously approached him with it and got to the bottom of the fact that he had decided that he had had enough of me.
I mean, how long was that into your marriage?
So from him actually coming from Pakistan, it was probably about a year in. We were a year into our marriage.
And from your perspective, up until you found that out, how was the marriage going?
I think it was, like I said, it was early days and it was trying to find our feet with each other. I was at college, he was trying to work. It was more of trying to get to know each other, and trying to see where we were heading in our marriage, rather than, I wouldn't say it was stable. We were happy, we had happy times. But we were working on, getting to know each other because we hadn't, we'd been cousins.
1 year into the marriage, you find out he has got some kind of communication going on with your first cousin, and that communication doesn't sound healthy in the sense that, this isn't what a married man should be doing.
Yes.
So what happens next?
So he denies it. Obviously, at first he denied it. He didn't just come out and say, yeah, I am doing this and this, that, the other. He was like, no, you've got the wrong end of the stick. Was getting family involved, making out that, I had blown something out of proportion. I hadn't allowed him a chance to, he had just got in contact as a cousin. She had taken it the wrong way. There was a lot of that toing and froing, and there was a lot of mistrust, I think, that had, because I was like, no, I know what I've heard, I know what's happened. But unfortunately, I'd got rid of the voicemail as well, so I wasn't able to say, well, look, this is a voicemail that she has sent. So there was a lot of that, and to be a newlywed at that sort of age and to have, those sorts of complications, and I would say arguments and upset and stuff like that, it takes a big toll on you as well. But yeah, we kind of got to the point where family was like, no, I had taken it the wrong way. So therefore, I needed to take a step back from it. But I think it was always there somewhere in my mind.
So family say to you, look, you've taken the wrong way. How do you react to this? Do you just put it behind you and carry on, or?
Well, try to carry on, but I think it's always there. I think, unfortunately, once that sort of bridge has been crossed, or, you have that little doubt in your mind, your heart, you kind of find it hard to sort of just be like a clean slate and go forward. So somewhere along the lines, I was always suspicious, always sort of like, I couldn't have got this 100% wrong. But unfortunately, doubt, seeps in as well. And you do start to doubt yourself and think, well, did I get it wrong? Could it be me? And like I said, it's early doors, you're young, you just think, okay, maybe we need to move forward and see where it leads us.
So what do you do next then? What happens in the marriage next?
We're married, still going together. I find out that I'm pregnant. And whilst I'm pregnant, I again have this inkling that there's just something that's amiss. And it comes to light, and he then admits that yes, he has been seeing her and he has been in communication with her.
Does he admit that when you say he admits he's been seeing her, does that mean he's admitting that there's some kind of relationship going on, or?
Well, he's been meeting up with her. He's not admitted to any sort of relationship, but he's admitted to meeting up with her, having coffee with her, having discussions with her. And from what I can put together, trying to persuade her to leave her marriage because he has decided that he no longer has interest in this marriage.
Right, and you find this out, or he has this conversation with you whilst you are pregnant with his child?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. How does that go then?
It feels like a good kick in the teeth. It's not something you want to hear when you're at that stage of your life. You do have all these thoughts going through you, in sense of, where do I go from here? What am I going to do? There's a child now involved. And how do I see this going forward? But I think the main thing for me was the fact that he was adamant that he was done with this relationship. He was the one that was, trying to persuade said cousin into like leaving her marriage, because he had made up his mind that he was ready to leave this marriage. And I think for me, that was a big indicator that we were done.
So whose decision was it to end the marriage? Was it you or was it him?
Mine.
And how did he take that?
Well, he didn't take it very well, because she had obviously rejected him. She had said no, she wasn't going to leave her husband and she wasn't going to come. And, his plans had obviously been spoilt in that sense. So I think he was kind of like, okay, we can just push it under the carpet. It's not like I just made a suggestion. So I don't know how he was justifying this in his mind. But unfortunately for me, that was a big red flag into the fact that if this person has decided that the marriage is not what he wants, this is not for him, even with his child being involved, then for me, that was a big indicator going forward that this person could be ready at any time to leave. And I didn't want to be kind of waiting, for that day to come.
How does your family take this decision that you're making? Because they are the ones that set this up.
They weren't the happiest of people at the time. You kind of got the comments of men are like this. He didn't go. He just said it. He just made a suggestion. My mother-in-law at the time was not happy with it. She was like, "Don't worry about it. He'll grow up. He'll get out of this phase," sort of thing. But I think they were not very happy with me wanting to step back from the marriage and be like, no, I'm done with this now. They thought it was a quick decision. I should give it time. We should live apart. We should take time apart from each other, and then see where we are with this. But I think I was so headstrong at the time in my decision that no, I don't want to live with somebody who wants to be with somebody else, and has made it quite clear and has made plans for that to happen as well, that I took a step back and took backlash, but took a step back.
Correct me if I'm wrong. As a Muslim, if the wife is pregnant, she can't get divorced until her pregnancy is over. Is that correct?
That is correct, yes. So we didn't divorce straight away. He refused to divorce me. But that was more to do with his immigration status, because obviously he was not permanent in the UK at the time. So he wanted to prolong it as long as he could. But I had decided that no, this is not what I wanted. But family had got involved and for a long time had said like, no, you can't divorce him. Even though we were living separately, we weren't together. We had decided that we were going to separate. But unfortunately, it did take me quite a while, couple of years, to get a colour.
You must have been around about 17, 18 when you gave birth, is that correct?
Yes, so I had my daughter at 18, and it it was a daunting experience. 18-year-old, obviously got this child to look after now, trying to, still go to college, finish off what I was originally studying. Um, Responsibilities, a lot of things, a single parent. So thankfully, family did back me in the sense that they helped take care of her. They helped with her upbringing and things like that. In the back of their mind, I think they still had it that, one day it'll be okay, one day it'll be fine. I would come to my senses, because obviously men are never to blame. um, but it was a tough time, I would say.
What's the involvement of your husband at this time, up on the, when you're giving birth? What's his role in relation to the child?
Not a very extensive role. So he had to go back to Pakistan to drop his sister off, who was visiting at the time. So he wasn't here at the time of the birth. But the time that I had come home from hospital, I can remember this one incident like it was yesterday. And I was sat on the sofa with the child in my hand, and he just looked at her and said, "We shouldn't be too upset that she's a girl." I mean, I wasn't upset about it, so I wasn't sure why this we had come into it. And even to the point where even we were living separately and the child was growing up, she was getting older, that he had never made an attempt to sort of come, want to get to know her, want to take her out, want to be involved in her life. And that obviously, again, for me, was an eye opener to see that he doesn't want any involvement in my child's life.
Um, I'm just trying to understand, and maybe you can make me understand, and our viewers understand. What did he mean by it doesn't matter, it's if it's a girl, or words to the effect of?
Well, they as soon as you get pregnant, they think that there's going to be a boy coming, and the heir to the throne is going to be, and they start to prepare for a son. And when they refer to the child, it's always as, oh, when this little boy comes along, and I think they forget that you can have a girl as well.
Do you think he would have made the effort that he didn't make if the child was a boy?
Unfortunately, yes, I think he would have made more of an effort if it was a boy.
Does he have any contact with your daughter to date?
So no, so she was 14 when he first got back in contact, and wanted to, have some sort of relationship with her. So from being about probably 4, I'd say, when he left this country, um, he did not get in contact. He did not ask for her. He did not want to send her letters, birthday, none of that was, not even through family. He had never made an attempt to say, look, I want to get to know my daughter. I want to, obviously have some sort of relationship with her. But she was 14, and he had decided then that he would like to get to know her. But at that time, I had that conversation with my daughter and said, look, this is the case. What do you think? But unfortunately, she was not of the opinion. She was like, no, it's too little, too late.
Going back to the moment you get divorced, between then and now, what has there been any contact between you and your ex-husband, especially given the fact that he's part of your family and he was beforehand?
No, so unfortunately, it did divide the families, and it did divide a lot of relationships up, because there's always some of the relatives that will take part, and think it's side with him. Some will side with me, um, but it caused a big divide. And no, we never made any attempt to sort of get in touch with each other. I never went back to Pakistan, never sort of made an attempt to go back and see family there, because everybody that I would see would have some sort of relation to him. So no, we just never got in contact again.
When your daughter was 4, you mentioned that he left back to go to Pakistan from the UK. Tell me about that. Well, why did he decide to go back when this is where he wanted
Well,
to be?
Unfortunately, he didn't decide to go back. He didn't have the stay to remain in the UK. And because I hadn't sponsored him any longer to stay in the UK, and we didn't have a substantial marriage, so I couldn't show that, there was a marriage and this is why he wanted to stay. I had him deported back to Pakistan.
What do you mean you had him deported back to Pakistan?
Well, I made sure that the authorities knew that he was no longer, we were no longer in a marriage. He was no longer, well, he was not participating in any way in his daughter's life. So, on the basis that he had come here, he was not fulfilling any of those points. So, therefore, he was deported back to Pakistan.
Season 1 of this podcast is sponsored by Muslim Marriage Services, also known as MMS. If you are looking for marriage, then join MMS, your trusted platform for finding a life partner within the Muslim community. What makes MMS unique? They are not just a matrimony platform. They are proud to be recognized as the world's only certified social enterprise Muslim matrimonial brand. This means that 50% of their profits are reinvested or donated to make a positive social impact. As you explore their features focused on digital security and compatibility, know that your journey with MMS contributes to something beyond matrimony. For further details, please visit www.muslimmarriage.global. Do you know how he took that?
Not very well. Not very well at all. He appealed the decision quite a few times, and even during that period, his intentions were quite clear, because he did not say, oh, this is, we need to save our marriage, or we have a child, or any of those things didn't come to light. It was more of the fact of, I need to stay in this country. I want to stay in this country. You need to give me an affidavit to say that you take that back. We're still living together. All these kind of things, and it just helped me to reinforce my decision of the fact that I no longer wanted to be in this marriage, because his intentions were clear at this point. But yes, he was very upset, to say the least, of having to be deported.
Okay, so you send your ex-husband on a plane back to Pakistan. So here you are in the UK, a young girl coming up to her 20s, who's also now become a parent, albeit a single parent. Now tell me about your life from this point onwards.
So at this point, I still lived with my mother, and she was a big support for me and my daughter. She'd always said that, if you wanted to educate yourself, feel free to do so. So I went to college, went to university, did all that sort of things while having a child that was in nursery school, trying to balance those two things together. It was hard, because it was something new. It was something out of my hands. It was something I had to do. But also, I would say it was a journey. People my age were traveling, they were doing things, they were, experiencing life in a different aspect to what I was doing at the time. I was going places, had to make sure my daughter was fed, clothed, she was happy, she was, content and stuff like that. Sometimes I can look back and think, okay, would I have wanted to go traveling at that time? Would I have wanted a different life? But then I say, shukr alhamdulillah, the life that I did have was a blessing as well.
Absolutely. You're now in a situation where you're studying. What did you study?
I studied nursing, adult nursing. I studied and became a nurse.
Do you remember that time when you went to university or you were meeting new friends, where people would ask you, are you married? Or, wait, you have a child? Do you remember that time and how you would react and what you would say?
Yeah, I think people were quite surprised, because I was a young mom, and they didn't expect me to come out and say, yeah, I'm divorced, and, I have a child at home, and I have to think about, because they would want to go out, or having meals, going out, doing the university lifestyle. I was kind of like, no, I've just come to uni, do my classes, go home. So we had a different sort of lifestyle going on there. But it was the surprise, I think, and the shock that you got from people when they would say, what, you're married, you've been married, you're divorced, and, you're so young. And what happened. And I think I was not wholesomely ready for that, but, kind of taken back that it was a surprise to many people, regardless of their background, regardless of, where they were from. They were all quite taken back from the fact that I was a young, single, divorced mom.
How did you cope emotionally? I mean, being a divorced individual now at a very young age. How are you feeling?
I think a sea of emotions comes through. I think sometimes there's the anger of the fact of, why me? I think sometimes it's hard because being a single parent, you want what's best for your child, and you want them to have the parent there with them. But it was sometimes upsetting. Sometimes I didn't used to think about it. Sometimes I just used to go with the flow and think, this is how it's going to be. You just have to get up every day, keep going, and things will just get better with time. But it was a lonely experience as well. Even though you have your family and stuff like that, it's different from having somebody to share bringing up your child with, the person who is obviously responsible for this child being in the world as well. It is an empty void, I think, sometimes, which doesn't get filled.
Did you feel, or have you ever felt, that your family, given that this was an arranged marriage, that they hold some accountability as to this marriage not working out?
I think there was some regret, I would say, from members of the family, in the sense of, you were too young, we shouldn't have done it, we should have thought about it. And I think it came to light that you can't just be, okay, we'll match this person with that person. There's got to be some compatibility. You've got to be able to make some sort of decisions for yourself as well. And I think it just came down to the fact that 16 was too young to be married.
When do you start thinking or looking for marriage once again?
So it took me a good couple of years. I would say I was in my early 20s, probably late 20s, when I thought, okay, let's see what is out there. Could I make it work again? Could I get married? And starting off, small at this point, just putting it out there that, it's something that I would consider. Getting a lot of negative, I'd say, feedback to begin with. It was mostly like, why would you want to get married again? You've got a child to raise, you've got to think about her. What would you get now? You're studying, you've got a lifetime ahead of you. Don't think about it now, give it some time. Mostly, I think the feedback, I would say, that I got at that point was sort of like, why do you want to get married for?
And what sort of methods are you using to find a spouse when you were ready to look for a spouse again?
The old traditional way of telling people, that you're looking, the Auntie G's and stuff like that, getting them involved. I've tried the apps, sort of signing up to that and putting myself out there that way. But unfortunately, I can't say that in either way I have had any success.
What's interesting is that you said that your marriage search journey would have started in your early 20s. You are now towards your, just pretty much at your mid 30s. What's your thoughts on the period of time that's gone by in your search?
I think there's been life events, and maybe there's been pauses where I've kind of thought, okay, this was going to take a back burner. There's been more times where it's taken a forefront, and I have tried my best to sort of get out there, have a look what is out there, see whether or not I can find, a potential spouse. I think the length of time that's gone, I think with time that goes, you do get demotivated, and you do kind of think, okay, is this really for me? Am I giving it the right time? Should I just give up? I think that's a lot of times it does come up to me where I just think, should I just give up now? It's been too long. And you do start to feel demotivated.
Do you feel that being divorced has impacted your search for marriage?
Big time. Yeah. I think that is like an alarm bell. I don't know why, to people. As soon as you say that you're divorced and that you have a child, people kind of like back off and be like, no, that's not what I'm looking for. Sorry, it's not for me. I have had a comment where somebody once said you should look in your own category. So I think they meant divorcees. But unfortunately, even with divorcees as well, they don't want to marry other women that have been divorced. So that's kind of baffles me a bit as well.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds contradictory, doesn't it? Or somebody who's adopting hypocrisy. Tell me the sorts of challenges that you faced in your search for marriage as a divorced person.
I think that's the biggest thing is as soon as you say the word divorced, people back off. They just think, no, this is not for me. They don't even give you the courtesy of saying like why, or even give you the time of day to sort of get to know them, or take anything forward or have a discussion. Ask what has happened. As soon as they hear the word divorced, they just take a back seat on it and say, no, that's not what I'm looking for. And as soon as you say you have a child, people tell you they're not ready to be a father to your child. And now, I mean, my child is quite older. I mean, she's mashallah 19. So I don't think she's looking for a father figure. But they just say, no, I'm not ready for that. I'm not ready to take on any responsibility, and just put their hands up to it.
I sort of explore one thing that you said, and that is, as soon as you mention that you're divorced, people back off. Why do you think that is?
I think unfortunately it's a thing which maybe it's a cultural thing, maybe it's just generational. I don't know. I think they're brought up to be like, if somebody is divorced, she's at fault. That's what they put it down to. And they make it out as if, no, we don't want to go with anybody who's had an unsuccessful marriage. That means that she can't make it work. That means she's not put in the effort. For them, it brings up this sort of stuff in their heads. And a lot of the time, growing up, men, boys, they're told that, they can have a single girl, they can get out there, find somebody who's not been married before. So for them, it just becomes a category that they don't even want to look into.
Could you, off the top of your head, share an experience in your search for marriage?
I've had people where they have said, oh yeah, I would consider marrying you, but my mom would never accept somebody who's been divorced before. And so that therefore I'm sorry, I can't explore this any further. People who will turn around and say to you that, no, I'm sorry, you've got a child, it's a big responsibility. I'm not willing to take that responsibility on at this stage in my life. That's not what I'm looking for. I think it's just been it gets disheartening after a time, when you just keep hearing no, 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 no. And the main reason that they will give you is because you're a divorcee, and it's something you can't change. It's not something that's going to change now. I'm divorced. I've, been single, gone through that thing. And I think, unfortunately, as well, at some level, it's like reliving that trauma again and again. It's like being blamed every time for it. Every time somebody says, oh no, sorry, it's because you're divorced. It's like you don't have the right to make a decision. You don't have the right to come out of a marriage if it's not for you, or if it's you've gone down a path where you feel that you both are at separate tracks. But it is daunting in the sense that people will make you relive that again and again. I had one, which was, I won't say which app it was, but it was from this app. And there was a gentleman who had said that he was a teacher. And it was a bit weird to me because at the time my daughter was probably about 10, asked if I had any children, told that yes, I have a 10-year-old child. And he was very much sort of like, okay, do you have a picture of her? Could you send it over?
Of your child?
Of my child. And I was like, no. And then he said, why are you being so overprotective? I was like, I thought that's the point of being a parent. You're supposed to be overprotective. But I couldn't come to, like, for me, I thought, okay, maybe it's me. Maybe the finding the search thing has changed in the last couple of years, and I'm not up to speed. I'm not up to speed with it. But I was a bit taken back by that, and I was like, no, I'm sorry, I'm not. This is not what I can do for you. And then they were kind of like, oh, you're being mean, and then was very defensive in the fact that I had said no, I wasn't going to send a picture of my child. Unfortunately, had to report that person because I did think that was a bit weird. And you get people who will say to you or will approach you and be like, oh, yeah, I would consider you if you hadn't been married before, if you didn't have a child. It's like you're telling me the obvious here. So why
True.
why are we having this conversation? You get people who are a lot younger than you that approach you, and I don't know how serious they are about marriage. I mean, people in their early 20s, and I will quite clearly say to them, I'm looking for somebody a bit older. So, I'm not, unfortunately, will not be pursuing this any further. But they're quite persistent in the sense that no, age is just a number. Don't worry about it. And it makes you think, like, why? There's so many people out there. There's so many younger people out there. You know, you might have similar interests with those people than you're going to have with somebody who's a bit maturer than you are, or a bit older than you are. And it does, you do take a step back and kind of think, okay, what's going on here?
I mean, did you not have an experience where a man you were getting to know via the apps, his
Was married.
yeah. Tell us about that.
Yes, yes. So there was a gentleman, I was getting to know him, just salam dua, how are you doing, this, that, the other. And then suddenly this woman had come on the chat and said, like, a couple of days down the line, and said, like, hi, I'm his wife. Who are you? And I was like, okay, this person is on an app for single people. So that kind of took me back a bit. And I was like, oh, I'm such a person, just been talking and this, that, the other, obviously looking for marriage. And she was like, he's already married. We're just going through a difficult time at the moment. I think this is why he signed himself up, but I understand he shouldn't have done this. But, you can understand where he's coming from. I was like, I don't understand where he's coming from. And why are you defending him? And she's like, yeah, we're just going through a rough time in our marriage. I was like, get a therapist. Don't go join a Muslim site for, single people and put yourself out there as like you want to get married. And then, next thing what you've got is the wives calling you up and giving you abuse.
Wow. I want to focus on motherhood for yourself. How's it like being a single mother pretty much from the moment you became a mum? How's that experience and journey been like?
It has its up and downs. You learn a lot. It's, she has over time become more a friend, more somebody that I would say that, I go to advice, guidance, and vice versa. So it kind of works in a different aspect for us. But it has been an up and down journey for both of us, I think, because it's trying to find your feet and trying to find that, being a mom and being a friend, trying to understand today's issues, what goes on, school, college, university, getting her through all that while I was trying to get through, being going to university. She had started high school at that time, so it was a difficult time for both of us adjusting. It has just been an experience.
Has she ever asked you about, or said something like, Mum, would you marry again? Or what's her thoughts on that?
She has, in the last couple of years, more towards that fact of, Mum, would you consider getting married again? And she has said, put yourself out there, try and see what is out there. She sometimes wants to go to events with me when she hit 18, and I was like, no, I don't think we can do that. But she's thoughtful in the sense that she thinks that I would need somebody as a companion going through life now. And I think she does understand that as she gets older, which is nice. But she does realize that, there is that battle out there, and there is that unfortunate stigma that's attached to being divorced. And I think sometimes, she takes a step back and does think, why is that out there? And I think she sees it differently. I'm her mom, so for her, my happiness, my being married, or my finding somebody is at her forefront. So for her to see it from a different person's point of view all the time of you're divorced and they just stop there and close the door on you, I think sometimes can be a bit hard.
When you've got two people looking for marriage, one single, never been married, and one who's divorced, do you think both are on a level playing field when looking for marriage, or do you think one has an edge over the other?
No, I think definitely being single, you have the edge over the divorced person. I think that, like I said, as soon as people hear that word, They just don't want to hear anything further. Single to them means, yep, this person is, from what I can say from what somebody has once said, so quoting what they have said, they are not used goods. Unfortunately, divorced people, that's how they see them.
You mentioned earlier that divorced people, so in your case, divorced guys don't want to marry divorced girls, so they want to marry somebody who's single, never been married. Where do you think that's coming from, and why is that coming at all?
I think that there are a majority of people out there, there is a lot of single females out there that are looking for marriage, compared to maybe there's not as many divorced people, I would think. And that is why they're thinking, we have a choice here. We've got single people, we can go towards there. But it does baffle me. Unfortunately, nobody has ever said why. They will say, oh, I'm divorced, I've got kids, but I'm not looking to marry a divorcee.
But why is that? This is what I'm not understanding, or maybe you can make the viewers understand. If you're divorced yourself, why would you rule out somebody who's gone through the same experience?
Maybe, like I said, they see it as you've not been able to make a marriage work. Maybe it's their own guilt. you know they feel like they couldn't make something work, and they don't want to go with somebody else who they feel is in the same situation. But I think it's wrong in the sense that they don't get to know that person, they don't get to know their story, they don't get to know their journey, what they've been through, because they just want to put a full stop on it right there and then. They just want to be like, no, I don't even want to consider somebody who's been divorced. And it's unfortunate because, like you said, you're in a similar situation. You could both be at the point where you've got kids, so that's something that you have in common as well. So you're going to get somebody who understands, but men just do not want to seem to get past the word divorced.
One solution, one may argue, is to assist single parents looking for marriage is to be part of a polygamous setup. In other words, polygamy. What's your thoughts on that?
I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think when you have been single for a long time, you have your own life, your own setup, your own sort of system going on. In my case, I would say, I have a routine. I go to work, I have my daughter, I have family, friends. And for me to introduce somebody to that full time after being single for so long, I think is going to be a challenge. So for me, I don't think that there is anything wrong with then being a second wife to somebody, and having that sort of fitting into, if you want to say, into your lifestyle and fitting into their lifestyle.
So are you saying you're open to being a second wife?
Yeah, I don't see anything wrong with it.
I just want to get your viewpoint on why, generally speaking, whether somebody's divorced or not, Muslims are finding it difficult to get married in today's day and age. Why do you think that's the case?
I think maybe some people have some unreal expectations of what marriage is going to be like. Unfortunately, I think for that, a lot of Hollywood and Bollywood have a lot to answer to that. So I think that is why they think they're going to get this fairy tale love story and this fairy tale marriage, and people don't want to compromise on things. And I think that sometimes does put a hindrance in the works of trying to find somebody. It's like if they've got a checklist, for example, they want to tick off every box in that checklist and there's no give. And I think sometimes you've got to look away from that and sort of be like, okay, this person doesn't tick that box, but they tick this box, they have this to offer, and look outside of the box, in a sense, and try to get to know people, try to be realistic in today's day and age. And I think that sometimes maybe it's age, because people think that you get to a certain age and that's it, you're too old to get married. And they kind of put you off, and they're like, oh, what are you going to do being married now? You didn't look in your 20s, why are you looking in your 30s? And I think a lot of people do put you off in that sense, and it does knock your confidence.
What advice would you give to divorced Muslims who are looking for marriage in today's society?
I think the biggest thing I would say is don't take comments to heart. Don't take what other people, what they believe to be your belief. And just, you're in this situation, only you know why you're in that situation. So, be confident when going forward. Try and find somebody who understands your situation, understands you, who's not going to just hear the word divorce and do a runner or question you or, put it to you as in the fact that you've made a mistake. I just think be a bit open-minded, and be ready for a little bit of backlash as well, which you will get. But I think keep pushing forward. If it's something that you really want, then give it 110% and keep pushing forward until you do find that right person, because, inshallah, we have to believe that there's somebody out there for us.
Two segments left towards the end of this podcast. One is a rapid fire round, and one is the profile that you're going to do, inshallah. Okay. So rapid fire round, 10 questions. Rule is you have to answer the question in a few seconds, and that's it, really. You ready for this?
Okay, all right, let's try.
Okay. Tall guy or extra large guy?
Tall.
Rich guy who you don't find attractive, or poor guy who you find very attractive?
Poor guy.
Living with in-laws or living independently?
Living with in-laws.
Looks or character?
Character.
Very wealthy guy with mediocre level of deen, or financially average guy with amazing deen?
Financially average guy with amazing deen.
Educated guy or successful guy?
Successful.
One thing you really want but you could compromise on for the right person?
If they were bald, I'd compromise because I really like people who have hair.
Interesting. One regret in life?
Oh, that's hard. No, I wouldn't say I've got any regrets in life. I think that, subhanallah, I think I am where I'm supposed to be.
Biggest achievement to date?
My daughter.
And biggest dream?
Oh, to see her happy.
I'm going to do a profile now, okay? But before we do that, actually, I just remembered, you've had one other challenge in your search for marriage, and it's to do with a particular feature of yours, right?
That I'm tall.
Yeah, what's your height?
So I'm 5'11".
That's interesting.
And yes, and unfortunately that is something that is a bit of a hindrance because guys do not like tall girls.
I mean, I'm sure tall guys like tall girls, right?
No, tall guys go for shorter girls. Have you ever noticed when you're out and about that you'll have like a 6'2" guy and like a 5' girl?
So what we'll do is a profile for yourself. It's a very quick one, okay? So Tell us your age.
37.
Your height.
5'11".
Your location.
Northwest.
Ethnicity.
Pakistani.
And occupation.
Nurse.
Now you tell us, what's your age range preference?
So up to about 42.
From what age to 42?
I would say 38, 39 to 42.
Okay. Height preference?
Somebody who's... I don't actually have a height preference. Like, I don't mind if the guy is shorter, but if they mind, then obviously somebody who's taller than 5'11".
So wait, how short would you go?
Probably about 5'8".
Location preference?
Northwest.
Ethnicity preference?
I don't think I have an ethnicity preference, just Muslim.
And occupation preference?
Not really, no. I don't have an occupational preference. Just educated, I think, to probably college level. But other than that, I wouldn't say that they have to have this amazing job.
If you fit the criteria of the guest today, and if you are interested in considering the guest for marriage, then please email us the following details: your name, age, location, height, occupation, ethnicity, marital status, family contact name, and details. Our email address is divorcedmuslims@gmail.com. Remember the golden rule: only family details will be exchanged. If we have no family details, then the request will be ignored. We're at the end of the podcast. I mean, is there anything else that you want to say before we end it?
No, I just think that, thank you for this opportunity, obviously, to speak on this subject, and just putting out there to people who are listening. And if they are divorced, don't get disheartened on your search, and just continue to push forward. And inshallah, you'll see the light at the end of the tunnel.
Thank you very much to Sister Zoya for joining the podcast today. And of course, we wish you all the very best in the future. Season 1 of this podcast is sponsored by Muslim Marriage Services, also known as MMS. If you are looking for marriage, then join MMS, your trusted platform for finding a life partner within the Muslim community. What makes MMS unique? They are not just a matrimony platform. They are proud to be recognized as the world's only certified social enterprise Muslim matrimonial brand. This means that 50% of their profits are reinvested or donated to make a positive social impact. As you explore their features focused on digital security and compatibility, know that your journey with MMS contributes to something beyond matrimony. For further details, please visit www.muslimmarriage.global.